Herbal tour, one of the literary type. And we are going to get a special tour of the treasures from the James Duke archives, exploring American herbal literature, tradition, and lineage. And who better to guide us than Matthew Wood himself, a prolific author in the herbal realm, and Susan Leopold, who many know from the United Plant Savers. She's really the hub. I think if you've been around and know the United Plant Savers, you associate her name and face with it as well. So just saying hello, Tara Bachland here with the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. If you're joining us here in the webinar, just going to give you a quick tour. We welcome you to join in the chat. We love hearing from you. And so first of all, go ahead and click on that chat icon. You can also find that under the icon that says more. And we're right above where it says type message here. It defaults to say host and panelists. Go ahead and click everyone, and that will enable you to chat with everyone, which we really encourage you to do. And we love hearing from you. I think we'll be taking some time for questions as well. When the question comes to mind, go ahead and put that in the Q&A. That's another section that just helps us keep it separate from the chat. Again, we love it when you chat. So many of you are chiming in, telling us where you're from, and we love hearing it. Good to see you all. And we're also broadcasting this live on YouTube. So some of these instructions, just so you know, are on the webinar. If you want to join us in the webinar where we will be taking Q&A, just go to the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism.com, scroll down a little bit of ways, and you'll see where you can register for the webinar. And we will be happy to see you here as well. So today we have a very special event, and a very unique event, I would say. And so today, Matthew Wood and Susan Leopold, Matthew Wood of the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism, many of you know him as the prolific author and teacher of herbalism. And then we have Susan Leopold of the United Plant Savers talking to us today about the treasures from the James Duke archives, exploring American herbal literature, tradition, and lineage. And lots of fun stuff to hear about as well. We get to hear some of the chatter ahead of time and get a sneak peek of what's to come. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Matt and Susan to get us started. I'll be back later to read us some questions. Let us know if you need any help in the chat. Otherwise, I'll hand it off to Matt and Susan.
Great. Thanks, Tara. Good intro.
Thank you, Tara. Yeah, except that Susan ought to be first. Well, you're on the first on my left side. That's good. Yeah, because you're more the expert here for sure. And but this is rather exciting. It's kind of strange that things have been more information's been collecting, like about Dr. Staba and then Stephen Buhner too. We should say we got emails, or a lot of people did, or texts from Stephen, who's pretty much feels he's on his deathbed, passing away. And I thought we would just do a moment of silence for him, because it really sounded mini strokes and things, and he's not leaving his bed. So let's just have a moment of silence for Stephen Buhner. So. Stephen was a real contribution to our world. We want to really hope him the best if he transitions now, and if not, we want to hold on to him for a while. Thank him for all that he's done too. So yeah, and he's contributing books to the library. So let's get back to that. We have probably many people in my generation who are getting older who would like a place to contribute books to. And really, I think you could, at a certain point, extra books you could auction off. And there may be some bibliophiles among the younger generations. We should put our book plates in the books. We should donate them. This book belonged to Matthew Wood or Stephen Buhner. That would be fascinating to have.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you, Susan, begin with the beginning. It begins with James Duke, actually. So
yes. Yeah, I mean, it's all, been incredibly serendipitous. When I think I saw Rebecca Wood, who popped up on the chat, and she is an herbalist and friend of the Dukes and the United Plant Savers and the center. And we were really, gosh, going back 5 or 6 years, we were talking about building the center for medicinal plant conservation at the sanctuary in Ohio. And we did a massive, fundraising campaign to raise the money to build this center. And Rebecca and many others, really put it out there that it would be a beautiful thing to dedicate the center to Jim and Peggy Duke. And at the time they were both alive, and I think they were very excited and honored. And, Jim had come and spent a lot of time at the sanctuary botanizing, and there was just a lot of connectivity, to the center and to Jim Duke and his work in the Amazon. And I got to meet Jim and Stephen Foster when I was taking his ethnobotany class in Maine. So there's just a lot of interconnectivity. And it wasn't long after that we built the building, we dedicated it to them, that Jim passed. And he had really set aside his library to go to MUIH. And at the time, MUIH had kind of transitioned more to online schooling, and really felt like they weren't equipped or had the space to take on the library. And word kind of spread, and people started talking, and then the conversation happened between Celia, Duke's daughter, and the president of MUIH, and we came up with an agreement. And so United Plant Savers then inherited his collection, and not just his books, but his herbarium, all of his slides of photography. And what I think is just really a treasure trove is he was, kind of a meticulous organizer. And so he had these a series of filing cabinets, alphabetized, that included, correspondence, plant information, illness, all alphabetized, and all this, data and information that he'd collected. So we took on the filing cabinets, the herbarium, the photography, and also his books. And we were able to raise the money to build these incredible bookshelves. And we would be doing this at the center with the library behind me, but we don't have great internet. So it's been kind of building upon itself. And when Stephen Buhner heard, that we had taken on the Duke collection, he reached out to me, and he's, really wanted to donate his books. So just in the last, month or so, we've received over 30 boxes of books from Stephen that we're just beginning to start to catalog. And kind of in between that, and it's something that I wrote about in the journal that you mentioned, John Staba reached out as well. And in part because he had this incredible collection on ginseng. He was very deep into the ginseng world, and had presented at, ginseng conferences in Korea and China. And so really, these things that are really hard to come by, all these, in-depth programs from all these conferences and their abstracts. And then he had this incredible holistic library, which is really just that, books that pertain to holistic medicine. And he also, as an avid book collector, I think it's a virus. I think you have it. I think other people have it. He had an incredible collection on Indigenous people of North America, and he donated that to the University of Minnesota, and you can read about it. So more people are reaching out. And David Winston and I've been talking, and he was just bringing up the point that of course there's the Lloyd Library, right? And it's an icon. And it really captured that time period of the eclectics and everything that was happening. And then, as we know, we kind of went into this phase of dormancy in American herbalism, and then it resurfaced in the 60s and 70s. And so it's like this whole new wave of American herbalism that really needs to be documented, and how all these interconnectivities have really happened in our community. And certainly Stephen Buhner is a cog in that wheel, as just a prolific bibliophile and writer and contributor to all the people who he's touched that have read his books. I mean, just anyway, so that's a little bit of an overview, but it's really great to see people from all over popping in on the chat. So thank you everybody for being here. And I'm excited to talk about this. I'm obviously super passionate about it. Something that that Matt and I share a passion for. But before I had the job at United Plant Savers, I was a librarian for Mrs. Mellon at the Oak Spring Garden Library.
Oh.
And I got to spend a decade of my life deep into photographing and cataloging rare herbals and early American plant explorers. And so it for me, it's not just the books, but it's the collector, right? Yeah. And that's a big element that feels really sacred to kind of document and honor. Is it's not necessary, the books are really important, but it's also the people that put these collections together, and the interconnectivities that sort of weaves together. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I mean, there's something different about, going to the Lloyd Library, there's probably editions you'd find John Scudder's signature, or certainly John Ray Lloyd. But here we'd be able to go and find books that belong to James Duke. We could kind of figure out what he was reading, what was inspiring him. And then John Stabe isn't as well known. I happen to know his name because he was at the University of Minnesota. And he was a professor there in the 70s when I started as a student. So he must be very old. And then Stephen Buhner, of course. And Stephen is the kind of person who'd actually save his manuscripts as he was writing them. So we may actually have a series of how did he think? Oh my God, preserving, I don't do that myself. But I talked to him about that. He actually preserved his, manuscript at a certain stage, and then later, and you'd be able to see the evolution of his thought with something. So some of this is really of great literary significance. And then are you guys collecting then? How about Stephen Foster's photographic? Is that a possibility?
I do believe that ABC will take on Stephen Foster's photography.
Okay. Yeah.
And then ensure that it continues to remain public and accessible. But as you mentioned, you were talking about the vernal witch hazel, which was on the cover of the last journal. And I was inspired to use that as the cover because it was the last photograph that he posted on Facebook. And we were really collaborating. And so I was just incredibly heartbroken by his passing, because he was so just really excited about taking on the role of UPS taking on Jim's library. There's the picture. Yeah. And so one thing that I wanted to start off with was, this is hoping everybody can see this. Maybe I just need Herbal Bounty, which is one of Stephen Foster's earlier publications, and it's a beautiful book. And inside this, it's got what he wrote to Jim Duke when he sent the book. And then there's just this incredible letter. This is what people did, right? You know, this like typed letter.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Pre-internet.
and
Yeah.
he talks about, kind of, Jim had complimented him that the herbal bounty reminded him of Geraniums for the Iroquois
Oh,
by Daniel Mormon, which is one of his earlier books.
oh,
And, and reading, Herbal Bounty, the foreword is by Richard Evan Schultes.
oh my. Wow.
So you just sort of, you build these
Wow.
these kind of building blocks of how, people inspire other people.
Yeah.
And that whole idea of mentorship. And I
Yeah.
think that's what makes Jim's collection so valuable, because this sense of mentorship is just overflowing, because so many of the books were given to him by people who had written something because they were inspired by him or because he had helped them with their research, and they're sending him, this book that, they and this is another one that I have so many books behind. I don't know which ones we'll get to, but I don't know. Are you familiar with uses of books?
Oh yeah, certainly. That's a different title. Yeah.
But this predates the medicinal plant book that Charlotte had written.
That's an earlier edition, or is it a completely different book?
I think that she wrote this book first and then the medicinal one.
Okay.
So I think they're very similar, but certainly, and this was, in it, there's, a handwritten note from Jim to her, because he wanted permission to use this book as one of his kind of course books in teaching his classes. So I want to just mention, that Helen's on the call, and Helen is United Plant Savers president. And, she worked with Jim for a very long time, maintaining the Green Pharmacy Garden, and I'm sure has tons of stories she could share. But anyways, I just wanted to thank you, Helen, for joining us.
Yeah, it's really wonderful to see those books. And I did meet Matthew for the first time at the Green Pharmacy Garden. I don't know if he remembers, but that's where I met you, Matthew, at a HG.
Yeah.
Planting the Future. I forgot where that was, but yeah, it was great. Jim was a consummate compiler. He was down there as a troglodyte in his library, which was in the basement. He was surrounded by government issued filing cabinets, stacked, just overflowing with all of his files, which he meticulously typed out, like anything from osteoporosis to psoriasis to, just his publications. And he would open it up and there was like, oh my gosh, it was just overflowing with information in them. And all in where he sat was down in this kind of like very dusty basement. And it was just suffused with like books everywhere. And I was like a kid in the candy shop, and there, I would just like pull out a book and look at it. And he did tell me, I met him when I was in my early 30s, and he sold me one of his early copies of the Green Pharmacy. And I came back, I guess in like 2002. And he definitely told me to get Stephen Foster's Herbal Bounty book. So I ordered 3 copies of those. And the geranium, the geranium Iroquois for the geranium. What was the name of the book? Yeah. And also Doug Elliott's book on his roots. So those were the 3 that he recommended to me when I first met him. But I just loved going down there and talking to him and watching what he was compiling and helping him as he stumbled through the the World Wide Web, but he was always calling me in to help him out. So it's really, I feel it is a treasure that UPS got Jim's library. I feel really honored that that's where it is and secure about it. And it's just a great resource. And I encourage everyone to come to the Botanical Sanctuary in Rutland and check it out. Check the woods out, check the meadows out, check the books out, and just see what's happening there.
Yeah, and look at this. See, we have the light from the heavens coming down for Jim and maybe Stephen. We don't know yet. So there. Thank you, Jim, and his wife. I forgot her name.
Peggy.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so this is just so valuable. I mean, we just are so rich in memories. This is also just helping us to remember all those herb conferences past and all those wonderful herbalists in those days. We were such a small persecuted minority. We really just loved it when we could get together, you know, at these various conferences and so on. And so, yeah, remembering I just was in his garden once and remembering him, and wow. So yeah, and then some of you may have books or money to support the brick house. So yeah, and how many hours from it would be Cincinnati and the Lloyd Library are you, so that people can maybe go back and forth if they want to?
Right. Yeah. Maybe becoming the Lloyd Library of the East. I mean, Cincinnati is about 2.5 hours. So it's
Not bad at all.
It's not bad at all. And then you've got like Serpent Mound sort of halfway in between. So
Yeah. Yeah, well, so you guys have a bed and breakfast place there at the brick house, so people could stay there, because as I was telling you when I last was at the Lloyd Library, I don't know, 15-20 years ago, there was a motel, I don't know, a half a mile away. It was the closest motel, and it was $24 a night, I remember, but you could also rent rooms by the hour.
that's terrible.
Yeah, right. I still remember the rather jaded guy at the front desk. I think he'd seen everything.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, this has all happened really recently. We just purchased the brick house, and we're doing a fundraiser to just kind of make some renovations that we want to do to the building. But absolutely, I mean, not just we've really expanded our art fellowship program, which is a program where you can come for 2 weeks and do a deep ecology art fellowship. And now we have this Duke Library Fellowship. So the brick house is really allowing us to be able to host more people to come and do research, and for art fellows to come, and then also for anybody that wants to come to the sanctuary. It'll probably be into the new year that we'll relaunch some of the rooms on Airbnb, and then begin to we've done if you go on the website and you see the library, it's really just the books and all the files. So soon we'll be moving into the brick house, all the photography and a lot of the other components of the library that we'll begin to digitize and then put on the internet as we begin to go through all of the materials. So right now we're doing this fundraiser, and if you donate $100, we have this really beautiful print done by one of our art fellows. You can see it, the Sage Invocation. So yeah, we'd certainly love your support, and a great way to support is to book the Airbnb and come visit and see the library for yourself. And like you were saying, when you go to the Lloyd Library, you don't really get to be with the books. You have to request them and they bring them to you. And so we really hope that this can be like more of an immersive experience where people can really get to see the books, be with them, explore them. It won't be a lending library. You'll be able to do the research with the materials here, but at least you'll be able to really have the opportunity to explore and get to do research. So we're super excited about it. I mean, certainly something we were talking about earlier with the Duke collection. I mean, areas that he was really focused on, that he did research on, starting with the work he did in Panama and the Darien Gap, South America and the Amazon, Maine, Maryland. I mean, those were areas of concentration. And then obviously just the medicinal properties of plants that he was, putting together all these lists and information, and really just an incredibly prolific writer in many capacities, from all the books to the publications, and also things like the Herb a Day book, where it was a combination of all these small little articles then put into a book. It's in a lot of kind of manuscripts or works that he was working on that maybe never really got fully published, that were, collections of information about plants from a certain region.
Wow.
And so though there aren't so many rare books, what makes the collection really unique is just kind of these one-off prints of, ethnobotany from just one specific region or one specific tribe. And so that's where, a lot of these things, aren't digitized or on the internet. So just trying to give people kind of, an idea of what they might find when they come to the library.
Yeah, and we might, if we came, we might rub shoulders with even conventional scholars, because he was in the USDA, wasn't he, for so long? And he was highly esteemed in the kind of more conventional world of plants as well. So that's kind of cool too. And it's might be a vehicle for making connections and with some other dimensions from from us weirdos. Yeah. Can you talk about the art fellows or fellowship or whatever you mentioned? Because I haven't heard anything about that. I don't know anything about it. What's that about?
Yeah, I mean, we also have, just a medicinal plant certificate program where people, before the pandemic, where people could come for 6 weeks at a time in the spring and in the fall. And then of course, that kind of stopped. But what I realized when people were coming and doing the internship program, some people really had, specific things they were seeking in their own personal connection with the natural world, and just wanting that time to, dive in and kind of a deep ecology way. And so we developed the art internship, the art fellowship, that you can apply. You can come and spend 2 weeks at the sanctuary and really explore whatever that calling is, right? Whatever that desire, whether it be, to do illustrations, to write music, to journal, to, whatever, dye with plants, like any kind of, and it just really seemed like once we came into the pandemic, the Deep Ecology Art Fellowship was something that we could do in a really safe capacity, because someone could apply and they could come and spend 2 weeks in the yurt. And that was, safe. Whereas, bringing a bunch of people together, wasn't at the time. So the Deep Ecology Fellowship program just, really expanded. And I think this year alone, we've received nearly 100 applications.
Wow.
Really incredible. Last year, we hosted, I believe, 18 art fellows, and you'll be able to read about them in the journal because people have submitted. We encourage people to submit work, share a poem, share an illustration.
So you can submit works too.
Yeah. We ask that. I mean, the one you're just pulling up right now, she dyed all this fabric with natural dyes from the land and then printed them and then made a quilt I mean, just really and really incredible. So some people, there's no, it's really whatever it is for you. And I just think it's to give people that space to maybe connect with nature in a deeper way, a deeper calling. So it's been a really wonderful program. And with the Brick House, we'll be able to host more art fellows. So we'll be you can say your preference when you apply, like if you want to be alone by yourself in the yurt at the sanctuary, or if you want to be sort of in a cohort of people here at the Brick House.
Mm.
And we currently have one library fellow who's in residence here. And Trevor's been really helping to do a lot of the cataloging, and will stay on in a long-term capacity, but we do help to also expand and open up more opportunities to take on library fellows. And then certainly if people want to inquire and come and stay in research, I mean, that's an opportunity too.
So are the walls covered with art yet, or is that still to come?
Well, yes. But when you come to the Brick House, you'll see lots of art, and there is and quite a bit of art that has been gifted through the program hangs at the center currently as well. So
Yeah. And just for the record, so the Brick House is how many minutes from the sanctuary, from the old established UPS?
Yeah, it's about 15 minutes.
Wow, that's
And
what an opportunity.
Yeah, it's super close. And what's really nice about the Brick House is that it's in the town of Pomeroy, right on the Ohio River. So you can stay here and do the walk along the river, hit a coffee shop. So it adds a different experience and ambiance to the sanctuary. I think they really complement. They're unique and complement each other. And then there's like this whole history of the medicinal plant trade, right? That happened up and down the Ohio River. So it really gives us an opportunity to kind of tell that story, right? How significant the medicinal plant trade was to the frontier, and what role the Ohio River played, and right, just follow the Ohio right down to Cincinnati. I mean, this really was the Western frontier, and the role that medicinal plants played in the trade and the economy is incredibly significant. And it's can easily be forgotten, right? And it still is a significant trade. It's just one that isn't as apparent, but the medicinal plant trade is very much still alive and happening in this region. Maybe it's not floating up and down the Ohio River, but it's coming out of the woods, and it's being brought to somebody who's gathering it and taking it to another person, and keeps going up the supply chain until it goes into your herbal supplement, right? So
Yeah. And do you feel that the United Plant Savers is helping to educate the wildcrafters and that community?
I do. I feel like we're kind of at a crossroads, in that maybe in some regards we're seeing like a new generation of forest landowners, and so there's a real momentum to have landowners actually cultivating some of these forest botanicals. And I think that's always happened. It's always been there. But I think we're seeing more of a shift and more of a support, all up and down the supply chain. And I mean, it really depends. I mean, it's really gets really specific on the plants you're talking about, right? Because the amount of black walnut that's collected and goes into the supply chain, or the amount of that's quite different than when we're talking about some of these more sensitive plants like the golden seal and the ginseng and the cohosh and the bloodroot. But I think we're seeing a shift to more forest cultivation.
Yeah, I really want to point out that medicinal plants can save forests because they have a great value. I remember I was at a conference about 1998 or so, and people were describing, one person described a clear-cut forest where there was, he just collected all this ginseng because they had clear-cut the forest and left hundreds of ginseng plants and lady slipper plants in another instance, and various and things that were worth a lot less actually can sustain the forest. And so a combination of better logging practices with awareness of what's on the ground and how valuable that is, and trying to reestablish that. Although I don't know, those of you who have had cut over pastured forests like I have know how hard it is sometimes to get trillium and different things going in places like that. But that really has an opportunity to save the forests in a holistic, much more beneficial way than just forestry practices. And I got to say, Ohio needs it. Like, oh, oh my God, I drove across. I mean, it's like a massive
Cornfield?
honeysuckle thicket through
Oh, honeysuckle.
all along Highway 90, is it 94, 90, in there, honeysuckle thicket, and which is, you know, an introduced plant that's just taken over because the overstory was destroyed. And by the way, there's plenty of research to show that honeysuckle is one of the favorite places of deer ticks. They love it's like a cosmology metropolis for deer ticks. I think the deer like to bed down in those thickets so that predators can't get at them, and then the deer ticks jump ship. And so there's reasons we want to reestablish healthy forests.
Yep.
Slowly, maybe, you know, we're talking about hundreds of years perhaps, but we can do it, and medicinal plants can play a huge part. And wouldn't it be wonderful, you know, it's kind of like, instead of all these laboratories creating all these crazy molecules that they're doing right now, to think of our forests as laboratories creating living plants that we have a much more fundamental, excellent relationship with. So yay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, that's what makes the Botanical Sanctuary so incredibly unique, because we have these forests that aren't taken over by invasives. So you really get to see these native plant communities. And I think that's why it's so important for people who do have healthy forests, and or who are trying to restore their land, to become a part of our Botanical Sanctuary network. I mean, it's really, I think that's the most impactful thing we can do, is really acknowledge what it means to be a botanical sanctuary. And it's really empowering for people to take that like initiative and like just begin that manifestation that, yes, this is important. Yes, I'm going to designate my land as a botanical sanctuary, and, you know, be a part of, like you were saying, it can feel really isolating, right? To, you know, the herbalists and the, you know, getting together, and the, you know, what those early herb conferences, like that was empowering to like to be around other people who value biodiversity, and the role that, you know, medicinal plants play in the ecosystem, not just like what they do for us, but what they do for the whole interconnected ecosystem. So yes, I mean, I do think as much as we can advocate for why healthy forests are so important, is a really critical part of you know, going down this healing path and being, you know, wanting to learn about medicinal plants. And certainly, I mean, Helen can speak to this as well. I mean, Jim was a big advocate for conservation, and I think that's why he felt, you know, kind of deeply connected to the work that we were doing with United Plant Savers, and he advocated for that with his all the time he put into the Amazon, and into his research in Costa Rica and Panama and Nicaragua, and, you know, up into certainly just the mountains of Maryland, and all the way up into the northeast of Maine.
I just want to add that at the Botanical Sanctuary in Ohio, Paul Strauss was actually able to reclaim, old coal mines, back into incredible forests. And they're right outside. You can go from the Duke Ethnobotanical Library, walk out these doors through this fantastic just meadow of native wildflowers into old, like almost climax woods of, so many species with the ginseng and golden seal and hollers of ramps and hanging fern, it's just fern gardens. And then you get to the very top of this mountain that had been clear cut. And now it's been reclaimed. And it's just like Susan and artists, actually, Philippe, were able to put together a great display of exhibits depicting the years in which it had been, a coal, like how coal was formed, and then how it was dug out for coal, and then how it's been reclaimed again. So, and that's just right outside this library. So, if you're in there immersed in books, you can walk right back out into nature right from there and be immersed into this world of plants and ecology. It's really incredible. It's like everyone should go there. So.
Right. It has both of those aspects. It has this forest that was, left pretty well intact and has all these, vibrant communities. And then it's got this reclaim area that was strip mined, and all this restoration work has been done. And so, you see the biodiversity returning. So I don't know, it's hopeful, right? I mean, nature's like incredibly resilient, really is able to deal with all the stuff we do. Yeah.
We had one question here from Whitney Deatherage. Have you considered partnering with the Internet Archive to help digitize the books and preserve the digital collection?
Yeah, we're looking at a couple of different programs that we haven't really decided quite yet. Certainly we're going to digitize the slides and photography. I'm not sure that we will be necessarily like scanning the books. But it could be a possibility if we were able to get a grant. And I think that, could be something to consider in the future. But right now we just wanted to catalog the books and have the catalog online that could be searchable. And we'll probably start with digitizing all of the slide film, and then kind of figure out where we go from there.
Well, let's see. Any other questions from our listeners or amongst ourselves here, or comments? This is just so wonderful, thinking back to Rosemary founding this, several decades ago. This has expanded beyond what I imagined then, or probably even she imagined. And it's kind of becoming a real force in the world. It's already a force in the herb industry world, more than, you can't really set standards for saving herbs, or you can't really save herbs unless you set standards and things, and or even as suggestions, and so it's incredible. It's kind of like a snowball gathering as it goes down the hill or something.
Feels that way.
Things.
Yeah, I see a question. Honestly, I don't know that there's a museum in the Americas that's specifically dedicated to ethnobotany. I think there are maybe certain collections. The Harvard Museum had, kind of an ethnobotany collection, but sadly they kind of dismantled it and sold quite a bit of it in the 90s. So I don't I don't, Matt, do you know of a museum dedicated to ethnobotany in North America?
No, but gee, that's terrible. I mean, that would have been,
I mean, obviously there's a lot of really great Native American museums that have incredible collections. But no, I don't, nothing really jumps into my head. Maybe somebody has something in the chat. I mean, gosh, ethnobotany is so broad, right? Because it's, anthropology and botany. And so I think there's a lot of, kind of good collections like the Missouri Botanical Gardens or the New York Botanical Gardens, but I don't really know of.
United States Botanical Garden also has a whole medicinal plant area where they have plants from all around the world and depict their uses. But I can't think of one that's just solely medicinal.
Or ethnobotanical.
Yeah.
And then that's what we've named it, right? The Duke Ethnobotanical Archive, which I feel like really does kind of adequately describe the collection. Wouldn't you agree, Helen? I mean,
yeah, well, he always thought he was an ethnobotanist before he even knew what that word meant or was ever heard of before. So yes, Jim was definitely an ethnobotanist. He went all around the world to study how humans use plants. And that's really what ethnobotany means. So he was one of the first. I mean, Schultes obviously prior to that, but he had never heard of ethnobotany, and he already had been one when he was in the Darien Gap, recording how indigenous people there use plants because they wanted to build possibly a second canal in Panama using nuclear devices, and he was tasked by I think it was Bastille Corporation to go there and look at the whole food chain to see how nuclear devices would affect the humans living there. And that's where Jim really went from like just a basic, he called himself he was a taxonomist to an ethnobotanist. Oh. Because he came out, he actually had gotten ulcers on his legs and was told to go to the hospitals back in Panama City, but he was treated by Native people there and they cured his ulcerated sores on his legs. And he was a convert right after that. So he would rather go into the woods and what is that? Oh yeah.
This is this little publication that he did when he worked with the Choku. I guess is that how you pronounce it? The Choku Indians in Panama. And it's basically a little dictionary, and he writes in there how important it was for him to learn the language so that he could communicate with them better about plants.
And then he made this lewd Latin lexicon to go along with that too, with all the lewd words that he was hearing all the time. And I don't know if you have any of those, Susan.
I do.
I'm not home right now to pull mine out of my library, but yeah. Jim was a compiler. He was I mean, as I said earlier, he just loved compiling, and I mean, he loved to walk. He was known as barefoot. He would walk around the woods and the jungle. I went with him the first time down to Peru. I went with the curator of the garden at the time, Holly Vogel, and we went to like REI and got all these pants and boots, etc., for the jungle. And I get to go onto the plane with Jim, and he's like wearing basic clothes. And we, just like a sport jacket where he put his boarding pass. And then we get there, he immediately gets rid of all his American clothes and just wears shorts and bare feet the whole time. And I felt so like here we spent, money on this fancy like safari clothes, and there's just Jim traipsing around and bare feet. So he went from like that to like just constantly like just compiling on his computer about plants forever. And he was
really at one. I mean, that's beyond intellectual ethnobotany, to be at one with the local environment and people and so on. That's quite incredible, because I mean, there's so many toxic plants and animals and things. I mean, to feel that level of confidence. I remember, this reminds me of Terry Willard describing he stepped onto something and all of a sudden he's being bit by hundreds of ants, and he fell over, and then there was this chopping sound coming through the jungle, and this Indian medicine man came on. Something's going on here. What's going on? And the guy saved his life, so that was in the Amazon not maybe Panama, but yeah, so quite something to be walking around bare feet.
Yeah, he did it. That's how he went we were in the Amazon, and that's where he was walking around even at night barefoot. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know, so
And I
that-
think the local people would respect him a lot more than some people there
right.
than me.
Yeah, Jim was great. And he played music. I don't know if Susan mentioned that or not, but he was a musician and he wrote myriads of songs about every like winter, like right now we're going into winter, right? And he had the song Wintergreen, and he would have songs about chamomile, and he would have songs about the Amazon and saving the Amazon and Chesapeake Bay. And, you know, it kind of he just would wow me all the time. He wrote a beautiful song about ginseng, which became, I would say, one of his best hits, his ginseng song. And at the sanctuary, Susan has an old, well, I don't know if it's an old or a new turntable where Jim had this whole album made, and you can sit there and play the ginseng song. So it's really he was a treasure, I must say. Him and
So
Jimmy.
artist fellowships could include musicians too.
Absolutely. We have had some musicians. Absolutely. People come and write music, or we had people, connect little things and record plant songs, with those instruments where you can, hear what plants are saying by their vibrations. So yeah, no, absolutely. It's really all encompassing. It's really whatever is tugging at someone's heart, as far as how they're feeling called to connect with plants in the natural world. So it's we've had a lot of really diverse people apply to the program.
Mm. Mm.
And I do think that it's really in honor of Jim, because he could go from that full stream of like research USDA scientists all the way to the hippy dippy and the musicians. And he was an artist. He was an artist, a wordsmith, a poet, a lyricist, a writer. So, I think his all of his books surrounded by nature and all the artistic elements of the center. Susan has done a fantastic job of taking the art fellowship, paintings, illustrations, poetry, whatever, and placing them beautifully around that center. I mean, I'm really impressed when I go there. Oh, look at the wood stove. That looks fantastic.
Yes.
Well, it's fun going through the books, because most of the books have a note in them, or there's a comment, and then of course, I found this copy, The Secret Life of Plants, that's signed to Jim by Peter Tompkins.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I just grabbed it when you were like, talking about really being someone who can just be really appreciative of all different perspectives. But
that's beyond even the hippie. That's
like next level. Like next.
I actually would borrow that book and take it home and read through it. I'm like, because Jim was not, we would get into these intense conversations about God and spiritual elements, and he would like fight it, but I could tell he really I don't know, when he got much older, he was much more receptive to it. It's like his antenna for that started going up, because I think he was maybe he was cracking his ego a little bit, and he was letting that kind of energetic of the unknown come through a little better. And he has great stories about when he did ayahuasca in Peru and how he wasn't a believer, but then he tells about these stories about how this woman saw this note of her brother and dying, and when they all got back, so they were all on this tour together and did the ayahuasca together, but when they got back to Iquitos, she was actually handed a note that her brother had died. And he was like, wait a minute, maybe I do have to rethink my very possible conservative thoughts on this. And he always questioned it, the whole spiritual element. I think he would not let himself go all the way there. But once he started breaking that open a little bit, I could sense it was coming in.
Yeah, and how nice that it was through plants that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this just shows the amount of diversity from pure science to spirituality, including all kinds of art, it sounds like. Library, yes, to the sanctuary, to the plants themselves. It's just an incredible, what an, I mean, what an amazing place between the sanctuary and the brick house, both. So
Yeah, and we just launched yesterday an exhibit on herbal elders of Ohio, where we did these great interviews of 5 different diverse herbalists in the state of Ohio. And we'll be showing it, we'll bring it up to the International Herb Symposium. So we're really excited to dive into the International Herb Symposium. United Plants has taken over the organizing of the event. So be on the lookout and very soon for registration and all the details about the IHS that we got you on the hook to join us in June.
well, we were wondering how long this would last. It looks like an hour, 8 o'clock here, my time. It seems like a good time to check off. So, what are these websites? Excuse me. So the brick house, do we just look up the brick house? Will that do it, or United Plant
Yeah,
Savers?
yeah, it's right on the homepage of United Plant Savers, and I saw the brick house being added to the chat.
Okay.
I have to say, I've got a tour of the brick house in September, and what a gem. My gosh, it's like this old 1800 house, and it just feels so apothecary-esque, and you can almost feel like little spirits in there. But it's got a wealth of information. So on Butternut Street, its first owner was Weeds. I'm like, this is just, it looks out over the Ohio River, and I can just see it being just a archive of just herbal wisdom. So, okay. So it's just, and as Susan said, I think it really complements the sanctuary. One is out in the meadows and the forests and the hollers, and one's in that really connects to a certain part of the herbal world, and then one goes back to the mercantile. You really feel the old mercantile when you're back there in Pomeroy. You can feel like maybe a barge coming up with ginseng on it, from 1800s. It really can kind of use your imagination and just see whatever is part of.
And just to draw this one last kind of link here was, Stephen Foster has roots in Maine with his family, going back to Pembroke, Maine. And Stephen Foster's great grandfather had built the Pomeroy Cottage, which is in Maine, which was for the very eclectic healer Pomeroy. So we were, before, Stephen passed suddenly, we were just geeking out on like all these, interesting connections. And I do hope, I don't know if you know much about Pomeroy, Matt, but he was this,
I don't. Tell me.
Yeah. Well, that'll be we'll have to do some research and dive into it, but he was a graduate of the School of Eclectic Medicine, and he had premonitions, and he became a very prominent healer that brought him a lot of wealth and a lot of controversy. But so anyways, just all these, connections, right, that weave us all together. And this,
I should mention too, as we're finishing out, Stephen Buhner described his grandfather, who was, I don't know if he was a graduate of the Eclectic Institute, but he was an eclectic physician, and he had his little kind of office behind his house, somewhere there in the Ohio Valley on one side or the other, maybe Kentucky, I'm not sure. And Stephen never, knew enough to talk about it with him before he died, but he was an eclectic too. So
yeah, he's from Appalachia.
Yeah. And one book I won't donate to you. I still have a herb book that belonged to my family in 1774. So, and so on Long Island, yeah. So, but all sorts of books. Yeah, I'm looking forward to donating things to you guys. I'll start with money though.
Okay, great.
Okay, time to go, I think.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
everybody, for joining. It's really great to see people from just all over
Yeah,
up in the chat. And
yeah.
Matt mentioned monetary contributions, and it looks like there's a little bit of text here that says if you donate by December 31st, your dollars will go twice as far. So it's an extra incentive, really help out the cause, give it an extra boost. So that's supporting the Brick House. We've been talking about this a lot tonight. If you joined late, I'm Tara Bachland, by the way, with the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism, helping to host this talk and get out the word and discover and learn about this amazing stuff. Stuff is not the right word. Sorry about that. But so of course, unitedplantsavers.org is where you go. And when you become a member, there are many benefits, but one of the benefits of becoming a member is there are multiple levels, but when you even become an individual member at just $35, you get access to a page with all kinds of coupon codes. And there are all kinds of herbal businesses that are generously offering discounts on their products and services, including the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. That is the only way you can get a 20% off coupon for the entire site at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. You will quickly save that $35 you have donated to the great cause. We are 100% behind the United Plant Savers and so happy to do events like these with them. And so your money goes a long way, even at the $35 level, but I definitely encourage you personally to bump it up into whatever level works for you.
yeah,
Susan,
there's like, I mean, it's a tremendous benefit as far as all the different herbal companies, including you guys, that offer all. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the list of benefits is on that. Oh yeah, there you go. Look at all that. Look at all those. It's really awesome. So I want to thank all of our herbal business members that offer discounts to people who become members, and I really want to thank you guys at the Matt Wood Institute for really amplifying the work of United Plant Savers. I mean, when we do these events, we always get so many people signing up and listening to what we're doing. And so thank you so much. And you're so good at like synthesizing the important work we do. So thank you.
well, there really are so many things you do. I've been impressed over the years. It's like each year you've been taking on quite a large endeavor, from, this recent project to the International Herb Symposium. What was it the year before? That's when the Duke Library was your primary project. I mean, it's like each year you take on quite a monumental task. And that's in addition to educating people and creating and helping us learn these standards for preserving the plants. And like you alluded to earlier, if someone didn't set those standards, even if people are just voluntarily adhering to them, we wouldn't know. And so we are all benefited by supporting you guys, and you really do an amazing job.
Yeah.
And
the journal, right? I mean, we send out the journal once a year, which is an incredible resource. And just so everyone knows as well, I mean, you don't have to be a member to get all of our resources, right? All of our journals are online. Anybody can download them. All the articles are there to be researched. All the data we collect, we try and put on the website. All the information about growing these medicinal plants are all there on the website, free for download. So really, when you're becoming a member, it's really just supporting the mission. We are totally dependent on our members. So that $35 amplified by 5,000 members is really what we rely on to pay our staff and keep doing the work we're doing. So,
and follow them on social as well. You do a great job of keeping us in the loop on social and fun stuff. Instagram, especially, but the links are up here as well. So check
No,
them out.
no TikTok.
That's okay. And if I may just take a moment also to just give you a heads up about the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism, we're hosting this class tonight for you. And we have great special offers going on over the holidays here. Sign up for our newsletter and you'll get the latest news on what is the best, latest offer. But hint, hint, if you're a UPS member, you get that 20% off coupon. And that is one of the best, if not the best offers out there, certainly across the board. It's the only offer we have that discounts anything and everything on the site. We do have 20% off of our library, which is the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism library, in which is hundreds and hundreds of hours of video, pre-published writings by Matthew Wood. And someone asked earlier, who is Lise Wolf? Well, we have many teachers on our site that Matt has specifically chosen his curated teachers to join us. And Lise Wolf is one of them, one of his early students. And she's been teaching and practicing for over 25 years now. They have an upcoming class tomorrow, but you can start at any time. Herbal First Aid. This one has been a long time in the making.
Oh, yeah.
We're so excited to be getting this one going for you. So that one started tomorrow, but like I said, you can start at any time. All of our classes are recorded, including Native American tree medicine. This is going to be a regular monthly class, which is already started with one on aspen and birch, which is so fascinating. With Matt's longtime friend, Paul Red Elk, you'll be fascinated as well with the stories and the background and just the experience that he brings from really many local tribes. And it's just super fascinating.
Here again, I would call him a library in his head of elders, all of whom really, I knew some of these people, they're all gone really. And so it's an amazing collection, just extraordinary. So
the torch has been passed and he has several that he's carrying on for us and sharing with us. And so we're very, very honored to have him teaching with and for us at the Institute on this series on trees. And then we have, this has long been awaited, another friend of Matt's. Matt's so good at making friends. Natural Alternatives for Pet Care with Will Winter, another Minnesotan, originally from Missouri, correct?
no, Kansas, no.
Kansas. Is Kansas?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I thought that was your dad. So,
Both of them.
okay, both of them. Super fascinating. Again, definitely check it out. A monthly class that what can you do for our furry family members with herbal remedies and so forth. Next week, we're going to cover making your own food for pets, and especially how to do it when you're living a busy life, which I'm super glad that he's including that as well. Boy, this was an incredible class. And spoiler alert, we're going to be doing a monthly class on COVID and friends. So Matthew Wood and another friend, Southern folk herbalist Phyllis D. Light, they covered COVID, the vaccine, and shedding. We had so many questions that simply there wasn't enough time for. And a lot of people were asking for a Q&A session, but really there's so many questions across the board. We decided to make it a monthly class addressing what friends, quote, friends, are coming into our environment, not just COVID, but what else is going on, and then addressing organ systems that are affected and various topics. So stay tuned, make sure you're on our newsletter list. Actually, if you signed up for this webinar, you'll be on our newsletter list, and you'll see what topics they will be covering. And then, of course, our free classes. Sorry, Matt, did you want to?
We do have a question here too. That's a pretty cool question. We'll try to get to before we sign off here.
All righty.
Yeah.
Free classes. We have lots going on this season. It's coming into winter. We're winter in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's a good time to learn about plants online. So of course, this is tonight's class. I already put the link in the chat where you can watch the recording on YouTube. Just it's simple to go there. But for several days, you'll also be able to come back here and watch it. And then we have an amazing first class on nutrition, the foundation of health, of course, related to herbalism, and how having really good nutrition can also help improve your health, not only nutritionally, but helping the herbs be more effective as well. This is an amazing first class, and the first class will be available for a couple more weeks where you can test it out, see if it's right for you as well, and ask questions of the teachers. Lots of great stuff. I'm not going to run you through every single one of them, but okay, we got to talk about doctrine of signatures, because this is like a specialty of Matt's. Like if you know Matt as an herbalist, you are going to learn about the doctrine of signatures. And we have a series of classes. So what are the signs, the symbols, the indications of where the plants grow? What do they tell us about what the plants can do for us, our bodies, our environment, or even our minds and emotions? So Goldenrod was a hit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So lots of fun stuff, online education for you. Check it out. If you have any questions, we have a very helpful help page, and you can contact us at hello@woodherbs.com. We have live classes going on all the time. All of our classes are recorded, so if you can't make it, you can check out the recording later. And then we always offer also online Q&A with teachers, so that if you're not able to make it, you don't lose that access. You are able to contact teachers with your questions afterwards as well. Okay, Matt, you wanted to address this
I thought
question?
this was a cool class, a cool question. Do you foresee a future for developing and presenting youth programs, camps, internships to inspire the next generation of ethnobotanists, herbalists, and other young people in the field? I addressed to Susan, I'm sure. So
No, it's
any-
a great idea. I certainly think this work, generates, inspires the next generation of ethnobotanists. Absolutely. And we do, at the center, we run a weekly Waldorf homeschooling
wow. Gee.
that
What a move there.
that meets every week. So that's been going on for a few years now. We do a lot of Katie, our program manager at the sanctuary, who's actually from Meigs County. That's really her passion, is environmental education. So she's doing a lot of programs with local school children. And then we have our medicinal plant certificate program that is happening in the summer. So that'll take place 4 weeks, end of June into July. So, but I love your idea. I could totally see an ethnobotany camp in our future, because it is really, it is really critical. And I feel like the energy of these collections and these books are just going to draw more and more people to come and dive deep into ethnobotany, and then see all the connections between how ethnobotanists over time have, shared this information and mentored people, and then they've mentored people. So that's the lineage, right? That we all have our own, right? We can all think of mentors that have touched our lives. Matt, you've certainly touched my life with all of your books. So thank you. I treasure what I've learned and reading those histories and understanding, where homeopathy came from, and really the American herbal tradition is really incredible.
Yeah. And Ohio Valley is the heart of it. Really.
It is the heart of it. It is the heart of it. It seems totally meant to be that we're going to continue this legacy by building this library here where we're at. I think people are like, well, why would you want a library in the middle of nowhere? Well, there's a reason. There's a reason.
Somewhere else is nowhere is our somewhere.
Yeah. Totally.
Someone asked in the chat earlier that it seems like a lot of herbalists and so similar type people have come out of that area. Is there something in the water, or what is it?
Well, it's the plants. It's absolutely the plants. I mean, you go back to Rafinesque, and all these different individuals were drawn here. And of course, the lineage of the indigenous people. The Ohio Valley was just such an incredibly rich and abundant region because of these river valleys, because of these hardwood forests. And so I think it's really the plants. I mean, and at the heart of it is the golden seal, right? I mean, Southern Ohio is really just the density of golden seal populations probably in its eastern range. So I think it's really the plants that kind of draw it together.
Well, thank you, everybody. It's been an incredibly neat program. And I'm gonna sign off so that I can donate some money.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Second.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
Be
See ya.
well. Thank you so much.